Calvary Chapel Chester Springs is a church I hear about all the time. I pass you all the time when I go to Target, but I'd never gotten to come in here, and it's just beautiful. And I'm a little envious of your coffee station over there. So my name is Michelle Manthey. I'm actually the prison ministry coordinator for New Mornings. And then I have Heather Albrecht over here. She is the reentry coordinator for the ministry. And where's Glenda? Glenda is one of our amazing volunteers that helps in all kinds of support roles, which is such a blessing to us. So the women asked me to share a little bit of how I got involved in ministry. I am a missionary. Heather is also a missionary. We raise support for our, we got to raise our own salaries. It's growing up, it's never something I would have thought of to do. I thought a missionary is somebody in a hut in Africa, Also, prison ministry is never something I would have ever thought of, to be honest with you. In fact, I'm like the last person, like humanly speaking, that you would pick to be in prison ministry. I grew up, I'm going to try, I get lost in the details, so I'm so sorry if I do. I'm going to try to keep it tight. But basically, my parents were high school sweethearts. My mom grew up in a Christian home, but it was a lot of hypocrisy in that home, and so she rebelled. And marrying my dad was part of her rebellion. So growing up in the, in the early 80s, everybody smoked inside. I hated it. I always hated the smell of smoke. My mom was depressed, so she drank too much. Turns out my dad was the alcoholic in the family, not my mom, which I found out as an adult. Background to help. There's a lot of stuff in my family that does give me some background to help in prison ministry, but on the outside it wouldn't make sense because I rebelled against them by becoming conservative. My dad was in sales, so he moved around. He has 4 daughters born in 4 different states. I was born in Pennsylvania. After my parents divorced, when I was in 3rd grade, a year later, we moved back to Pennsylvania to be near my mom's family. And it was there, because we lived with my grandparents for a year, that they started taking us to church. We went to a Baptist church out of Lancaster County. We went 3 times a week. Sunday morning for Sunday school and church, Sunday night for another church service, and then also Wednesday night prayer meeting, or when I got a little older, youth group. So now when my kids, I have 3 kids, when they complain about how long church is, I'm like, you have no idea. But it was there that I was discipled in the faith and really grew. Up until that point, I knew Jesus loved me. I knew John 3:16, and that was about it. And so God really used my dysfunctional grandparents in an amazing way in mine and my sister's life. I have 2 half-sisters that are significantly younger. So a verse, what also makes me unlikely, in addition to my lack of worldly experience, I was also incredibly shy. So shy I wouldn't even raise my hand in class, shy. When an adult would ask me if I wanted something to drink, even if I was thirsty, I would say no. I didn't want any attention on me. It was ridiculous. And actually, still, I deal with anxiety on pretty much a daily basis. This makes me nervous. I mean, it would make anybody nervous, but I just deal with that daily. So if God can use me, I say all that to share God can use anybody. Just who you are, He uses. So one of my favorite passages, I know you guys are going through Romans, but this is 1 Corinthians, but also Paul. So is found in 1 Corinthians 1, verses 26 through 29. It says, "Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before Him." That's me. And it also, for me, has a double meaning with prison ministry, with working with the women there. God uses us in our weakness. Our weaknesses are His strengths. And that's a beautiful thing to share with people. So like I said, if you had asked me when I was growing up, even I went to Lancaster Bible College, if you'd asked me even there, I would have said, no way would I be in prison ministry. But here I am 27 years later, and I love it. So what drew me out of my shell, what got me to take this step? And when I had decided to go to LBC, I was just started out thinking maybe I'd just do a 1-year Bible program, and then I fell in love with the atmosphere there and all I was learning about God, and I decided to stay for all 4 years. And all I knew while I was there was that I wanted to help hurting women. My mom had encouraged me in that. I'm very empathic to a fault. And she said, you'd be good at helping people, Michelle. So that's what I went into. At that time, there was no major in counseling. It was what we called a professional emphasis or a minor. So I got a degree. I have a BS in Bible, which makes me laugh still every time I say it. But as I was going through the counseling classes, my junior year, it was like a group therapy class. And I had an internship I had to do, a requirement for that class, where I had to be a co-facilitator of like a support group or a recovery group. And I wish I could go into all the details of how God orchestrated this, because it was so God, and it was in the details. So ask me later. But basically, God worked it perfectly. There was a woman at my church who was the director of a place called the Restoration House, which was for women coming out of prison, and it was faith-based, of course. And my friend told me about her, and she's like, you should introduce yourself. Maybe they have something for you there, because I'm a procrastinator, and I waited to the last minute to find this internship. And it was just so God. And she later told me, her name was Karen, is Karen. She later told me that when I introduced myself to her, she thought the women are going to eat her alive. Because another thing, I looked extremely young for my age. Like, even after I'd been out of college a few years, people would ask me why I wasn't in school, and they didn't mean college, they meant high school. Anyway, so they had a woman at the Restoration House who needed a ride to a support group that needed a co-leader. And it just so happened that that co-leader was somebody I knew from the Bible college. And anyway, that was just so cool. And then my internship turned into a part-time job, and then that part-time job turned into me living there for 8 months while they were looking for alternate staff, because I was all they had. And the whole time I was there, Karen and one of my professors who was on the board, they kept saying to me, we're grooming you for prison ministry, Michelle. And I would smile, and I would think in my head, no way. If you can't tell already the kind of person I am, my husband is the exact opposite of me. He's like as extroverted as it comes. You know, he's a jump in with both feet kind of person. And I think that's what we tend to think as leaders as being, or people in ministry as being, but we're not all like that. I am a come up to the pond, dip my toe in the water, and take a step back. And then God gives me a little and I'm like, okay, God, fine, I'll do what you say. So I tend to be more of a wrestler with things, a little bit more anxious. Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. So I had no plans of going into prison ministry. I just knew I wanted to work with hurting women. But as I neared graduation, the Restoration House eventually closed for lack of staff. And that old director went to work for a ministry called Rest Ministries in Coatesville, which no longer exists. We are basically just Rest under a new name. And she said, you should come check out Rest Ministries. I think you'd really like it. So I said yes to say no. I'm like, I'll go down and see it, just so I can say, okay, no, thanks, it's not for me. But of course, God was like, nope, Michelle. I have bigger plans for you. And I loved how organized they were. I loved the heart of their ministry. They had two main, focuses. One was in the prison, and then the other was actually in local churches, like helping local churches start support groups and helping them, like offering workshops on dealing with your hurts. And that I knew, because I was hurting, and I was in a local church, and my family. And so I went in thinking I want to do that, but they needed me at the prison. So I was like, okay, I'll start there. But it didn't take long for God to totally change my heart, because the atmosphere in prison, it can be so dark. These people, they're at, some of the lowest parts of their lives where they're dealing, loss of, it's just being in prison is traumatizing, but they already are coming with tons of trauma in their background. And then there are good officers there. There are Christian officers in Chester County Prison, but they aren't all that. And some of them treat them like, I've heard, like animals. Like, no dignity. The whole mission of Chester County Prison is rehabilitation. But did you know that the national average of the recidivism rate is 7 out of 10 people return to prison within 3 years, and it's even higher within 5 years. So clearly something isn't working. And it's so easy to say, well, they did their crime, let them do their time. But we pay for that. And I meant to look up what it is because I forget. But we pay hundreds of dollars a day per inmate to be housed. And if they keep returning, then we're paying that. And then when they do get out, they're returning to our communities. And if they haven't been changed, then it just is affecting us more. So something clearly needs to change. Oh goodness, I'm all out of sorts here. So what I love about it going in there is because it's so dark, that little bit of light that you show shines so much brighter. And that is infectious. Watching God work, like He is the light. I'm transporting it in, and Heather and Glenda and whoever, all their amazing volunteers, but He is the light, and we just kind of get to carry Him in. And seeing the lights turn on, seeing them hearing for the first time that they are forgiven, that they are loved, that there is hope. It doesn't get better than that. So, God, and I know I'm biased, but I believe if any of you went in with us, you would fall in love with it too. So one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who originally said it, was, God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. And that harkens back to that Corinthians passage. Like, He makes us, like He takes our weaknesses and turns them into strengths. Our heart, the things that we've gone through. And what is New Mornings? It's just a beautiful thing to watch. So what is New Mornings? Our mission is to restore our community and justice system, those affected by the justice system, through faith, connection, and support. And we have a vision of seeing the very people that we're ministering to, then transforming their communities through the love and hope of Christ. That is our vision. So we have in-prison ministries. On Tuesday nights, we go into, let me explain this real quick. How am I doing on time? So when you commit a crime in Chester County, doesn't matter where you're originally from, if it's in Chester County, you go to the main prison. And so it could be a minimum crime, maximum crime, anything. So, from the lesser to the greater. And then from there, they're kind of stuck there until they are sentenced. And that can take months, even years sometimes. It's insane how backed up our court system is. Most of the people that we work with are not, don't have an end date yet. So if they have a greater crime that is more than 2 years that they have to serve, once they're convicted, they go on to a state facility. And there's at least 3 state prisons for women in Chester County. But if it's less, then they just do out their time, usually at Chester County, or go on to a rehab center or something like that. So there are 3 buildings on the prison campus. One is the main prison where everybody goes initially. And then there's a correctional center. Used to be called the Work Release Center. I think they're trying to turn it into the Reentry Center. That's a privileged place to be. If there's 100 women at the main prison, there's maybe 5 to 10 at the correctional center. And then there's a third building that operates totally independent, which is the Youth Detention Center. And so we have a women's Bible study that goes every Tuesday night into the correctional center, that more privileged place, and does a Bible study with the women. So we're trying to support them as they're getting out. Amazing volunteer named Marion Strong. I don't know if anybody, she seems to get around. A lot of people know her, but she leads worship. She always brings her guitar. She makes everybody feel comfortable. She is so good with the officers and the women. And she is our faithful leader. And then we have a team of volunteers every week that go through and teach, lead a small group. And it's like a small group environment. It would be like here, like sitting around a table together. And we usually have like an icebreaker question, something like, what's your favorite ice cream and where are you from? Stuff like that, just to get them talking. And then it's more of a discussion. We lead a discussion group and prayer and all that. So that's at the center. We also do a women's chapel service at the main prison for the minimum security. And our purpose being that we're hoping that they know who we are for when they get over to the correctional center, or just that we are able to maintain a connection with them. And that is like the third Monday of every month. And we have another team of amazing volunteers who lead that. One named Dawn, she loves speaking to big groups, and I'm like, yes, go for it. But we have now like a team of 3 that are willing to teach, which is wonderful. And from there, we get most of our requests for one-on-ones. And that's basically what it sounds like, one-on-one mentoring. So we send around a sign-up sheet, and they request to meet with somebody. They might have a specific person or might not care who. And their reason for meeting could range anything from they need reentry help, which Heather back there is the best known for. She knows all the resources in Chester County. Or it could be that they want to grow in their faith, or maybe they're just curious about God, or they just don't even know why they're signing up. I guess it's just an excuse to leave their pod. So we get all sorts, but it starts a relationship, and that's what's key, because we would like to continue that when they get out, because mentoring really is the key to success. And before I go into that, we also, while they're in prison, they can memorize 10 verses of scripture to get a recovery devotional Bible. They can get free Bibles from the chaplain, but ours is like special. So that encourages verse memorization. We also send out weekly cards of encouragement. Right now, we average over 60 cards a week that we send out to currently 7 different facilities, but we've sent them out to as many as over 30 facilities. Because we follow them, like when they get transferred, we follow them or if they get arrested in a different county, it pops up for us, and then we're able to send them a card. And we get requests on a weekly basis right now for people to be added to the cards list. There's a state facility out near Pittsburgh called Cambridge Springs, and they must be having a revival over there. That's all I can say, because every week I'm getting requests from them. Please add me to your cards list. They're so beautiful. And our cards we have some samples over there at the table, but everyone has a pretty picture, something nice for them to look at, scripture, and like a little mini devotional. And that goes out. And there's a team of 3 of us who put those together. And Glenda, where are you, Glenda? Glenda faithfully prints them out every week and mails them to all 6. That's a lot of time. It's probably next to, of course, paying for our staff. Stamps, I think, would be our biggest expense in the ministry, because they're not cheap. Anyway, so that's been a blessing. And then, Heather helps with things like housing and employment and all that, giving them resources where they can connect with other ministries. And I just wanted to share briefly a story of one of the women that we worked with a few years ago. I'll call her M just to protect her. M was coming down faithfully to our Bible study at the center. And, a gung-ho Christian really actually challenged me in I need to be spending more time with the Lord. Look how gung-ho she is. But she was complaining about her roommate. I guess her roommate was a bit antagonistic toward God and giving her some trouble. And after a couple weeks of this, Marion asked her, what's your roommate's name? And M paused for a second, and she was like, she gave her name. We'll call her A. And and then it was like the end of the night, so she left. The next week, she came in, and she ran up to Marion, and she said, I know why you asked for her name. It was to pray for her. And Marion's like, yes, it was. And she said, that convicted me so much. So I'm praying for her now, too. And I don't remember if it was weeks or months later, but A started coming down with her to Bible study. And sadly, M, when she got out, she was on fire for Jesus, but unfortunately she fell back into bad relationship addictions. I pray for her actually quite a lot, because we're not supposed to have favorites, but she was one of mine. But A kept faithfully coming, and she was in for a while, so we had a lot of time with her. And while she was, I asked her later, like, what kept drawing you back? Because she wasn't sure what the heck she believed. And she said, when I read the Bible, I just feel lighter after. And yeah. So actually her husband and she has a little girl with disabilities. They actually started coming to Marion's church, and he got involved in the men's group. Daughter got involved in the kids ministry. It's actually right in Downingtown, Brandywine Grace. And after A got out, she also started going to church. They're now all members of the church, and she has a position where she's able to hire people with where her job is, and she's offered, let me know, send anybody my way that needs a job. I'd like to give them a second chance too. She's offered to share pastries with, it's just really cool. The power of, that relationship that she built first with M and then with Marion was life transformative to her entire family. Yeah. So the other things that we offer, obviously, are grace bags, which is what we're doing today. And I want to tell you a story about the grace bags. So I came up with the name just because grace is God's undeserved favor. And people, you think, there are people that say, of course, that's their punishment, don't help them out. But God doesn't view us that way. He gives us chance after chance. As a parent, when I get frustrated with my kids, I realize it's kind of opened my eyes to God's immense patience with us. I'm like, oh man, because then I see my own behavior and stubbornness toward him. So last February, so almost a year ago, Heather and I were approached by a couple of employees at the prison to see if we would expand our Grace Bag program. Up until then, we had mainly just offered the bags to our clients, like people that we knew in our groups that were coming out. Or if somebody would come up to the office, like an unhoused person from City Gate or something, we'd offer bags to them. And she asked if we'd be willing to expand it so they could give out the bags too. And my biggest concern was supply, because we are small. Heather and I are the only two missionaries on staff. And I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce Gina. Gina, where are you? Gina is also on staff now. She's like our communications lady. So if you ever do follow us online, it's Gina. So thank you for that. Anyway, and we both are part-time. We both have 3 kids at home. And yeah. But so we're small but mighty. But I was like, I don't know if we'll have the supply to meet the demand. But we prayed about it, and we said, okay, we will take this step of faith. And I kid you not, the very next week, I got a call from a woman at Christ Community Church who supports us, and she said, somebody just donated 50 brand new backpacks to us. They had like a logo on them, and I don't know if the company went under or if they had printed them wrong, but they were beautiful bags. And she said, we want to fill them for you. The very next week. So that replenished our supply and made us a lot more bold. So now, let me see. So last year we shared nearly 80 bags and with 10 different organizations. So we kept offering it to more groups, which has been really neat for us to be able to do too. So adult probation and parole has them for unhoused clients. The prison probably hands out the most, which is actually very nice. because so many are being transferred to rehab centers and they don't have family around to get them stuff. So they're coming there with nothing, and they're relying on just the goodness of others to share their products with them. So they're getting them right away then, as opposed to having to wait for us for like a week to get them there. And then enter you guys. We're running low on bags. I was starting to worry because my faith is not always steady. I was starting to worry about where are we going to get more because we're almost out. And then I get a call. We'd like to do bags for you. And you guys did way more than I was expecting. And it's just so neat how God works. And I want to share this too. Like, God works with us as we are. And who we are. He knows our weaknesses. He knows where we need like encouragement and strength. I need the gentle push, like, take this next step, Michelle, take this next step. Some of us need to be whacked. Not to say that God whacks, but you know what I mean? Like, he works us as we are. And I was just like, okay, I'll take this step. I don't know where it's coming from, but God provided. And he continues to provide that way, which is just awesome. The other thing that we offer in the community, which maybe you guys would be interested in around Christmas time, is called Hope Wrapped. Are any of you familiar with Angel Tree at all? Yeah, okay, a lot of Angel Tree people. We're like Angel Tree. In fact, that used to be our name, but we changed it so that they know that we're different. But unlike Angel Tree, where you pick up one gift and bring it to the church and you don't have really a connection with the family, ours is specific to Chester County Prison, to the moms at Chester County Prison. So with Angel Tree, the men are covered through prison fellowship. And it's basically, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's providing Christmas gifts to the kids for us, specific to moms in Chester County Prison, in their name. So their mom, like when we wrap a gift, say it's from Cindy, it doesn't say from my name, it would say from Cindy. So their kids know that they're thinking of them. And what we do is we ask people to sponsor a family or sibling group. So if the mom has one kid, it's one kid. If it's 4 kids, then it's 4 kids. And then we encourage small groups to get together and sponsor because it gets expensive. And then you just provide, you're the one who, if you sign up to be a sponsor, you contact the caregiver, which is often a grandmother or sometimes a father or, an aunt or an uncle. And you think about that. That's a lot on them to take, especially if you're older, to take in a whole family and have to suddenly be responsible for them for an unknown amount of time. And so we want to encourage the caregiver, so we give them each a $50 Walmart gift card, so that hopefully they usually use it on their families, but they could use it on themselves if they want. We just want them to know that we see them in this too. And then, and then they deliver the gifts if possible. Sometimes, like I said, like I have a woman I'm meeting with right now, she's from Virginia. So you can't well, I guess you could, but I wouldn't want to make that drive. So we're not always able to hand deliver, but when possible. And so it really just creates a relationship with that family. And I actually got a text from one of our sponsors this past Christmas thanking us for this opportunity because it was so meaningful to her and her family. She said her and the grandmother, the caregiver, were crying, hugging and crying about God's goodness when she delivered the gifts. And, it doesn't always happen that way. But it's so cool to see relationships built through this kind of a program. So that's a little bit of what we do. Oh, and we did I think we covered 40 families this past year, which is about 90 children. Yeah. So we're always raising money for that and all the end of the year stuff. So New Mornings is a faith-based ministry, meaning we don't collect any government, we don't have any grants or government funds, so that we can do what we want to do, which is preach the gospel. And anyway, everything we do, every Bible, every card, every grace bag happens because of God's people saying yes. So as an invitation, if you feel your heart stirred to partner with us financially, we would greatly appreciate that. This year, I'd really like to focus on getting some regular donors. whether it's to my support as a missionary or Heather's or to the organization as a whole, just so, because right now we are running at a deficit, to be honest with you, just to cover things like stamps and stuff like that. And so if you're interested in doing that, there's a sign-up sheet over there. There's also QR codes if you wanted to give right away. And then, yes, and one-time gifts are also, we'll take any gifts you give. You could also give of your time. If this intrigues you at all, come see me after or sign up on that sign-up sheet, and we'll contact you and have a chat and see where you might fit into our ministry. We need teachers, we need mentors, we need support roles like Glenda does, all kinds of ways to be involved. If you like to fundraise, clearly we need that help. And then the third way, I just want to encourage you to open your hands to God. Maybe God is not calling you to prison ministry. I know God has us all for our own unique roles, but he is calling you to do something. Just be willing to take that small step of faith, Do it scared if need be, like I do pretty much every day. God doesn't ask us to be fearless. He asks us to be faithful. And when we say yes, one small step at a time, he changes lives. So I just encourage you, invite you to be part of that. Because it's not just life-changing for other people, it's life-changing for you. We get more, I would say, out of our going into that prison than they do. So, anyway, that was it. Thank you guys for your time, and